us to one problem with alternate history. Well, actually, there are two things about alternate history. First of all, the change point has to be plausible. And secondly, the consequences that flow from the change point have to be plausible. Now, in my opinion, all these Spanish Armada I stories sort of flunked the first test. I happen to know something about that period of history. In fact, I researched it rather thoroughly. I did sneak one alternate history novel past Tony Weisskopf by disguising it as science fiction. It was entitled St. Anthony's Fire. And in this one, the Spanish Armada wins because aliens give them antimatter weapons.
But no one ever expects the Spanish antimatter weapon.
But the thing is, what I'm getting at, though, I happen to know something about that period of history, and I'll ask you to take my word for it. There is no way in hell the Spanish Armada could have won. The plan of campaign was totally unrealistic. Typically, your Spanish Armada wins story presupposes that it would have won if somebody other than the Duke of Medina Sidonia had been in command of it. Horatio Nelson couldn't have led it to victory. In my opinion, the best of these stories was one by Harry Turtledove entitled Ruled Britannia.
Yep.
Never mind the god-awful title. It's a great novel. But he sort of disarmed me by starting out with an author's note saying, yeah, I know this is an extremely low probability event, but what the hell, let's have fun with it. And I can get behind that.
That's neat.
But we have a question for Liz.
Logically following that, though, wouldn't stories about Hitler winning World War II be similarly implausible?
This is a controversial subject. Some people would agree with you. Others, I also read a theory by competent historians that Hitler screwed the pooch when he invaded Russia. Instead of putting a lot of resources behind Rommel and let him drive on into the Near East.
Well, Stephen Fry won the Sidewise Award in book length last year. A British guy, doing a story about, everybody complains about how bad Hitler was. Somebody goes back in time, assassinates Hitler, but the Nazi Party still comes to rise to power in Germany because there were events driving it. And then they actually have a leader who's a competent, a strategist, and he wins World War II. As much as we dislike Hitler, the SOB that he was, he still lost. The alternate could have been they could have had somebody who knew what he was doing. Yeah. England's in the position it's been in relation to World War II and the Spanish Armada has a lot of opportunities for those alternate histories. And in American alternate history, too, if you study the situation and the resources, it really would have been hard for the Confederacy to win the war. The only reason they went as far and as well as they did is they definitely had the better generals, and also they were fighting a defensive war. All they had to do was make the Union quit.
The only way the South could have won the Civil War would have been to win it politically after having essentially already lost it militarily. And the way they could have done this would have been if McClellan had defeated Lincoln in the election of 1864 and acted on his campaign promise to negotiate peace on the basis of Southern independence. This is the way they would have won it politically after having pretty much lost it militarily. This shouldn't seem strange to us, since that's exactly what North Vietnam did.
Yeah, so I was driving here from Washington, D.C. I drove from Washington, D.C. That's why I came in to visit with family. I saw the signs say Richmond, and of course I'm thinking, I'm actually saying to myself, onward to Richmond, Which is what they made fun of Lincoln, onward to Richmond,
The city of Petersburg a few years ago, their tourist ad campaign, they had a slogan, once 100,000 men died trying to get into Petersburg.
Now they can't get out
One of
fast
the
enough.
reasons I like alternate secret histories is because then you don't have to mess with the facts on the ground. You can just put another supposition. I'll give you a good example. I did a story. It was called Meet Me at the Grassy Knoll. And it's about a wealthy man, and if you know the situation, you pretty much figure out he's like, the grandson or the great-grandson of the millionaire Mr. Hunt, who was a wealthy industrialist, whose people accused him of maybe being behind the Kennedy assassination. And he has rebuilt the family fortune, and he's always presented the fact that the pall was cast over his family, with the implication that his right-wing great-grandfather was behind it. So he hires someone to get a time machine and go back and find out what really happens. And they go back to the day Kennedy's assassinated. He's absolutely convinced he's going to find out who the second gunman was. Well, while they're on the grassy knoll, they realize, he and the scientist he goes back to realize it's a bad idea because it's such a traumatic event that's about to unfold. And the rich man loses his cool, and when he realizes the assassination is about to proceed as normal and there is no second gunman, he loses his temper. Being a Texan, he had a firearm on him without even thinking. He gets so mad, and he realizes what Oswald's about to do. He pulls out his gun and starts shooting at the school book depository window, see if he can stop Oswald. And of course he can't. It'd be an impossible shot. The scientist grabs him, knocks him on his ass, they go back. And, you know, at the end he says, well, you found out who the second gunman was. The reason why nobody figured it out, the second gunman wasn't shooting at Kennedy, he was shooting at Oswald, and it was you. So you did find out. It also has that idea of preserving history. You can't really change history.
Right.
So
this is a theme that I used in my time travel series, the Jason Thaino novels. Here, I have what I call the observer effect. And what the observer effect says is that you can't go back in time and create paradoxes. Anything you do in the past when you're back there has always been part of the past. And therefore, if recorded history says it didn't happen, then you can't do it. In other words, you could go back to World War II, get in a battle there, shoot some nameless soldier. This is okay. He was always shot. But you can't go back and shoot Hitler. Because history says Hitler didn't get shot, and if you try to shoot Hitler, something will prevent it. It just can't be done. And my hero, Jason Thaino, in one of the novels, as a result of not thinking clearly because he's head over heels in love, tries to fight the observer effect because he has reason to know that this woman he's in love with back in the 17th century is going to be killed, and he's decided he's going to save her. It turns out his efforts to save her are precisely what cause her to be killed.
I thought it'd be much room for free will.
You can't change the timeline. But here's the thing: in this series, and this really is what is driving the series, the bad guys are trying to create a secret history. Because you see, you can't change you can't change recorded history, but there are vast stretches of the human past that aren't recorded. Great blank spaces. They're going back and filling them with things like nanotechnological time bombs that are timed to go off at a certain date in the future when they're planning their big takeover. Ditto genetically engineered plagues. Ditto more subtle psychological developments. They're creating secret societies and keeping them going by having infallible prophets show up from time to time in over history. So that finally, when their big day arrives, it will turn out that the recorded history was just sort of window dressing, behind which real history, their secret history, has been inexorably building toward their triumph. And this is what the good guys are trying in this series are trying to prevent.
Do we have any other questions from the audience about our discussion so far? Yeah, you know, back again, Paul.
Well, the thing I would like to do would be to start with alternate premise, a risk-averse universe, or a universe where everybody really learns from their mistakes the first time, and figuring, okay, what goes on from there? Risk-averse universe, like, snake, pelts it with fruit and run away.